In this video, I'm going to show you how to select a good photo for the negative space branches project, how to enlarge it, crop it. You can place the focal point using rule of thirds, and then I'll show you how to use an app to put a grid on top of your photo so you can then enlarge it onto your paper pretty easily. So here goes. First off, this is a selection of photos that I took when I was outside, so I'm just going to look at some of them here. And that one doesn't really excite me. So when I took my photos, I was looking for a variety of negative spaces. I wanted some larger negative spaces and then some smaller negative spaces. Now in this photo, if I chose to do this, the issue with this, now I love that shape of the leaf, but the issue with this is I don't have any variety of size. So I've got some large leaves and some round figs, but not a lot of branches, not a lot of varying sizes of the leaves. They're all large. So you want to look for variation in both the size of the leaves and maybe even the shape of the leaves, because you might end up using two different types of branches from two different plants. Now this is kind of cool as I'm looking at that, and but not a whole lot of variation in that, and you need both. Now Unity is built into this project, so the Unity is built in because you're going to use the same plant and the same branches, so it has a sense of unity. Now I really love this tree. It almost looks like explosions or fireworks or something, and that might work, but I don't have that variety of sizes, although I do have a nice variety of negative shapes, some larger, some smaller. If you take a photo like this, it gets a little tricky. We could zoom in and we could see some branches there, and that's kind of lovely. I like that diagonal. I like the V shape with the branches. I think that works pretty well. But again, I don't have that variety of size. Now, if you use a photo with a background that's kind of complicated with this, you'll just have to not draw that background. One of the ways you can get pretty good variation in size is to use a photo where you're looking up through the leaves and into the sky. And as you see here, this looks pretty good because I've got some really big leaves and some really smaller leaves, and some variety of branches, but this one's not that much about the branches. It's more about the shape of the leaves, and that's okay. You can do that. Now, at the top right here, you can see that would just be a big clump of leaves, but still, that's kind of in the top for me. Here's another one where I was looking up, and here, what I might consider doing is combining some of the leaves from the fig tree with some of the palm fronds. Although, as I'm looking at the palm fronds, I know that I'll be painting the negative spaces, and they look really, really small. So I'm not sure I want to do anything that intricate. You always have to think about what you want to do. Now, and how complex you want it to be. Now, as I was outside taking pictures, I noticed these beautiful shadows on the pavement, and that really reminded me of what we're doing with this assignment, except we'll be painting the negative spaces. And in this image, the negative spaces are light, and the all the leaves from the trees, the cast shadows are dark. But I thought that was really beautiful, and it kind of reminded me of that assignment. So I wanted to show it to you. Okay, I'm going to make a decision. I'm going with this one. All right, now I'm going to edit, and I am ready to crop. Now when I crop my image, I want to select my aspect ratio. And what I want to select is, let's see, I want to go to 3:4, okay? And if I do 3:4, then I'll be able to work out a grid using math on my paper that's, fairly simple. So here I am working with the 3 to 4 sides, and it kind of goes back and forth between horizontal and vertical, and you can do either one. Now, what I'm looking at is the shapes of the negative spaces. I want them to be varied. I want this to look balanced. And I realize the only thing I'm going to be painting is the negative spaces, right? Now, what I might do is, you see when I move my image around, you see the grid here of the 9 rectangles. At every intersection, that is a really pleasing place to put your focal point. It's called rule of thirds. And you can see I have that little intersection with the branches, and a fig is growing there. So maybe I just place that using rule of thirds. And I think that this design will be pretty good, except for the upper right corner where I'm going to have a big area of just white with no variation. I'm wondering if I should, rotate this. There we go. Let's see what I come up with as I rotate this and see if that helps at all. And let's see, maybe it does a little bit. Okay, you also want your images to be cropped on all 4 sides. That's what I would recommend. Now, another thing we can do, and we could do this later, and is I'm going to just say done, because I want to show you how to do something else. If we edit this now, and if I go to crop, one thing I can do is I can rotate it a little bit using crop. And then if I do that, maybe I can get a composition that I like even better. Now, I love that diagonal with the branch, how that's coming through. So maybe I want to go with something like that. And then maybe I want to get a little bit tighter here. And then again, I'm still working on placing that. Maybe I'll place that right there. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, now I still have a big sort of clump of green, and remember, it's just your negative space going to get painted. You can see how much I'm kind of playing around with this, and I think I'm going to settle on that. So I have some larger shapes, I have some smaller shapes, and I'm looking at it, and it looks simple enough for me to do during my demo. So I'm going to say done on that. I'm going to now click on this grid hashtag app. You can see how I have other apps on my phone too to do grids, like the drawing app. And I also think that Pixlr has a gridding function on their app. So you may want to explore different types of apps that put a grid on top of a photo. Okay, so this one's grid hashtag, and very easy to use. That's why I like to use it. You click on the little camera on the icon on the upper right, and then you can see you have access to your photos. And let's see, where is that photo that I wanted to use? I think it's right there. Yeah, that's the photo, but this grid is totally wrong. Now, what we did was we created the image in a 3 to 4 aspect ratio. And that's because I'm going to give you the math on how to lay that out on your paper using the 3 to 4 aspect ratio. So in order to put a grid on top of it, it's important to just use a square. And that's what we want to do right now. We want to change the grid type. Instead of rectangle, we want to change it to square. Now, it doesn't really matter if you set the rows or the columns. The rows go across, columns go up and down, so I'm going to set the rows. Now, thinking about my image, and I'm going to go look back at it. All right, so it's horizontal, the rows go across, it's going to be 3 to 4, so I think it's going to have 3 rows, so that's what I'm going to try right now. So you can see I'm going to set my row to 3. Yeah, come on, there we go. Set it to 3, go back, and there it is. pretty easy. Now, there's other settings that you can play around with. You can set your grid color by having them all by having all these colors pushed all the way up to the right. That makes it white because when all colors are mixed together in light, and that's what makes the color of our screens, it's white. And you can also change your line width. You can have it be a little bit narrower or wider that way. Those are really the only settings that I use. Then, once you're satisfied with your image and you have your grid on top, you're going to take your finger and you're going to hold it down on the image until this pops up and it says Save Grid and Image. That's what you want to do. So I click that. It says Image Saved. I'm going to say OK. And then it's saved in my photos. Now, once in a while, when you go to click Save Image, if you didn't pay for the premium app, an advertisement will come up. You can just push that screen down, and then you'll be able to save your photo.